Do you ever feel like older movies have something that modern ones don't? Before I went to film school back in 2010, I really hadn't watched that many. But a mentor of mine pointed out that viewing them was an essential part of learning the craft. Since then, I've watched a lot more. And it got me thinking, why do I feel like they're just better? So I came up with 4 different answers to this question. Let's get started. Time curates quality. With the amount of content that's being created today, it can be difficult to know what is worth our time to watch. I mean, look at every streaming service. They each have a handful of A movies, but once you're through with them, you spend 45 minutes each night deciding which B movie to watch. One of the benefits of the classics is you know which ones have stood the test of time. It's easy to think that older movies are just better, but bad ones have been made throughout the history of cinema. What makes the difference is that older ones have been left in the past, whereas today's are all around us, mixed in with the great content that's also being made. At least with classics, if they're still being talked about, you can safely assume they're a great movie. The old inspires the new. If you only watch new movies, then it can sometimes be easy to think that certain filmmakers are being original. But as the saying goes, there's nothing new under the sun. Or as Pablo Picasso said, good artists copy, great artists steal. Most of today's filmmakers have watched a lot of classic movies, and they draw inspiration from them. For example, I can see elements of Buster Keaton in Wes Anderson's films. Quentin Tarantino has even stated that he steals from every single movie ever made. And if any filmmaker has seen every single movie, it's probably him. So if you're an aspiring filmmaker, there's a lot of value in watching old films and even stealing from them. And if you're just someone who enjoys watching movies, well, learning which ones inspired your favorite directors can help you discover something new that you might also like. Inspiring positivity. Older movies are more positive than newer ones, and the main reason for this was the Hays Code. If you're not familiar with it, it's essentially a set of codes that American films had to adhere to from 1934 until 1968. And you may think it was just about censoring sex, violence, and language, but it was more than that. One of the things that you couldn't show in movies was bad guys getting away with doing bad things. There had to be consequences for their actions. Because of this, movies made under the Hays Code were generally very positive. Now there are a few exceptions, especially in the 1950s and 60s when the Hays Code started to lose some of its control. But generally movies made during this time were very hopeful. Even when they dealt with heavy subject matter, the ending would still be positive. And this creates a clear line where movies became much darker in the new Hollywood era of the 1970s. I mean, who can blame these filmmakers? They suddenly had a lot of new stories that they could tell. And today you have a mix of both darker movies and more hopeful ones. But man, sometimes nothing can beat the positivity of these older Hays Code era films. Whether it's Jimmy Stewart fighting for a lost cause in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, or Jack Lemmon becoming a mensch in The Apartment. These are the kind of movies that can really inspire, and we still do get them from time to time, but I believe they are far more common in the past under the Hays Code. They show a simpler time. When watching the classics, it can be easy to think that things were much simpler back then. And while there is some truth to that, I don't think it's as simple as it seems. For one thing, just like we were talking about, there was the Hays Code. This made it so that you couldn't show a lot of the problems and struggles of that era on screen. Everything seemed simple because for the most part, that's what they had to show. Another argument that could be made is that life is much faster paced now compared to what we see in the classics. But the reality is that while things are more rapid today, people in the past felt their era was also very quick. I mean, the opening scene of Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times, a movie made in 1936, is a critique by the filmmaker on how fast life had become. But I think the truth lies somewhere in between. While life was quick back then compared to even earlier times, it's only gotten quicker. So we can look back at the movies from the 1930s, 40s, and 50s and romanticize a life without cell phones, social media, and instant communication. And even if life wasn't as simple as it looked in older movies, who cares? They're just entertainment. Cinema is meant to be a break from our real lives, and one way of doing that is by showing us things that are not necessarily based in reality. So what I've learned is that great films and bad ones have always existed. But what I think older movies have that newer ones don't is time. Because when something stands the test of time, it ingrains itself in our collective consciousness and can show us the past while also inspiring our future. If you found this video interesting, consider checking out this other one here. It's about how they took a certain Christmas classic back from the public domain. Thanks for watching.